rocking with your boy like always. Definitely a privilege and an honor to do as such. Y'all see what we getting into. We back at it. Gems of War continuing the series. Let's go ahead and break this down. What I'm doing right now, I'm recording for my YouTube page, so if you actually get a chance to see this live, definitely appreciate all of you who's rocking with it live. But if you're going to check on the YouTube page, I'm actually doing this one for you. So let me go ahead and break this down. I am level 1080. So in my ranking of 1080, you would think that's actually relatively high, but believe it or not, in the balance of Gems of War, that's actually considered to be a mid-tier ranking. That's not considered to be top tier by any stretch of the imagination. That's really considered to be a mid-tier ranking, not necessarily a top tier ranking when it comes to Gems of War. Shout out to my squad, the Burning Legends 2. Shout out to them. They're the ones who actually put me on to actually help me accelerate to even get the resources necessary so I could actually become and get to this point a lot more quicker than what I was doing with my previous guild. So shout out to the Burning Legends 2. Shout out to everybody who put me on. I definitely appreciate all of y'all real fast. But really what I'm breaking down real fast is really in essence this. You know, I'm going to go through a lot of the things that's going on for the week. I know a lot of people are starting on this morning. You actually got your campaign. Ironically, in this particular campaign, it's week 10. So if you're familiar with the campaign right now, week 10, this is actually going to be the time when you're going to have to make that decision. You know, the decision is going to be, at this point, do you want to put the $10 up to go ahead and get this particular mythic? Now, Kharandra is not a bad mythic by any stretch, and ironically, if I'm not mistaken, because it's an Urskaya, and believe it or not, this is the week for Urskaya out of all things, I don't know if you could actually pull this completely just out of keys right now, because I have an okay set amount of keys for this. I got about 455, and if I broke down what I have as far as Urskaya troops, as far as like what I have from the known and unknown, or unowned, excuse me, I don't know what's wrong with my talking today, from my owned and unowned sets of troops, this is actually one of those ones that you could potentially pull. So if I could potentially pull this particular mythic, why would I put the $10 up in order to pay for said mythic, especially if I have a chance to pull it this week? That is in consideration that it's actually available to be pulled out of the gem keys. I don't know if it's actually available to be pulled out of gem keys or not, but it's definitely there. So you have that one, and you have Enrage Kharandra. Now, I don't know if that one's able to be pulled either, but it's actually sitting there. So out of all the Urskaya, you know, troops that I have left, I only have 4. And so I guess the ratio would either be I would get a bunch of the other Urskaya troops, but I have a chance to get Doomclaw, which is a mythic. I have a chance to get Kharandra. Apparently, that's a mythic too. So ironically, I might pull for those keys. I may not pull for them today per se. I probably will pull for them later on this week and just see what happens. But it's really decision time when it comes to the campaign. Now, believe it or not, looking at my particular campaign, I've actually been able to do it. I ran the campaign, I've actually done it, so I'm actually at artifact level 9. And the reason why I actually went ahead and did it, I didn't pay the $10 for it, but I did go ahead and get it simply because I wanted the boost from all the effects. So I wanted the magic boost, I wanted the life boost, I wanted the armor boost, I wanted the attack boost. I really just wanted the boost that came along with it more so than anything else. So that's really what I was looking to do, was to more so get the boost for myself and for my team. So when it came down to events like this week in particular, I think we're looking at a guild war this week. So it actually will come into play in the guild war. So ideally, if I could actually run through the table sometime between today, tonight, before or after I get off work, because I do got to work in a little bit. When I get off work, I might just jump back on tonight, try to bang through all the objectives real fast and get ready for this Guild Wars. I know a lot of top tiers don't really like put a lot of heavy emphasis on Guild Wars, but I think, to my knowledge, I think my team does put a emphasis on Guild Wars, so I at least try to participate as much as I can, and not just that, in all the events. Speaking of events that's going on, you also have the Sealing the Gate event that's going on, and really the most important thing out of this is really going to be in the badge and in the tokens, in the badge and in the medals here. I believe in this particular badge you get a 40% skull and spell for all troops in this particular current event. People do have to read that particularly clearly, because people think that when you are buying these badges, it works for everything across the board. It actually just works for this particular event, not just all the events in its entirety. So that's one of the things that you really have to kind of keep in mind when you're running like events like you see here. I'm gonna go ahead and purchase up a couple of them here. I normally purchase about 2. I normally don't go. I normally get it to where it's a medal. I don't normally go like, really high tier as far as like putting out gems. Cause I have about 4,600 gems, but I always try to conserve my gems in case I need to do other events. That's a necessary event that we're going to do. Now in this particular event, just to give y'all idea of what I was thinking in regards to this particular event, you can only use Urskaya troops. Part of the reason why I was thinking about pulling, but I could tell you like basically off rip. Class, I'm definitely going to tell you is going to be Sentinel off rip, because Sentinel, go ahead and equip that. And my Sentinel is not even that high. I didn't even work on my Sentinel, to be honest with you. I know that's probably the second best tier class you could probably rock with outside of Titan, but I haven't really put a lot into it, but I definitely go ahead and upgrade that. But I'm definitely going to rock with Sentinel. The reason why you want to rock with Sentinel, of course, because it is Urskaya, so it gives you that particular boost right there. And then troop wise, I could pretty much tell you without really looking too hard at it, for my particular setup, even though I don't have everybody in the mix, what I'm looking to do, I'm gonna actually go ahead and drop in Ursula here. I'm going to drop in where's the other one? I'm gonna drop in King Mikau there. Probably flip those 2, to be honest with you. Then I'm gonna go with Baby Yaga in this particular instance, and then the weapon, because I really don't have like a good weapon to rock with. Ideally, I'll probably just do the Hammer of Urskaya. I think that's what I'll probably have to wind up doing, and I'll just probably just upgrade the weapon. That's at least what I'm doing with my particular setup. Like I said, this is the life of a mid-tier. This is not like what your top tiers go through, because when you're playing the game and you got a lot of top tiers, they're going to have better weapons, of course. They're going to have a lot more Urskaya weapons to kind of pull from and kind of choose from. I mean, for me in particular, I don't have all those weapons to choose from. I know you could probably craft a couple of weapons in the Soul Forge, which we're going to go over that momentarily, which may be an option to you, but for me it's not an option for me because I don't have the gems to actually do it at this point in time. Maybe later on in the week, but currently the way that it stands, I don't have the gems to do it. But at least for my particular setup, that's what I'm looking to do at this point in time. That will be my setup for that. Guild Wars, I'm not going to do a big breakdown on Guild Wars. Everybody has multiple things in regards to Guild Wars. You could just look at Guild Wars. Those things don't really change as far as setup. Is really depend upon your composition of teams. But what I will do real fast is I'm gonna go ahead and break down a few things real fast. Go ahead and drop into the Soul Forge real quick, and you can see I only have 528 gems. I mean, I could ultimately maybe craft a weapon that could probably work. I think the weapons cost like 300 or so gems, if I'm not mistaken. Axe of the North or Razor Claw. Either one in that instance would actually work just fine. I just don't know if I really want to pop up the 300 gems in order to craft it. I'd rather hopefully later on in the week, another Urskaya weapon pops up and that works, even though neither one of these are bad, bad for what they do. The only problem that I have with it is that it's really just only works with Urskaya troops, and 9 times out of 10 you're not running with the Urskaya team, believe it or not. On a rarity you may, but 9 times out of 10 you're not, so that's why I really don't want to invest heavy into that. But you do have those weapons there. Razor Claw gives, for me, in my particular magic, all that stuff, does 24 damage to an enemy, boosted by Urskaya troops. Then create a mix of 6 green and brown gems for each Urskaya ally. If you have a full Urskaya team, that's going to mix up pretty well. You'll probably probably get a good mix of green and brown gems in that regard. So it's good in that regard. Same thing with Axe of the North. So deal 24 damage to an enemy bursted by Uskaya allies, plus times 6 ratio. So you could do the math. 6 times 4 is 24. So you basically will double up and do 48, and then you'll still get the same mix of green and brown gems. Still work out just the same. This one deals 7 damage to the last enemy on 4 or 5 matches, which is actually pretty good. That's actually pretty good if I actually use that particular trait. But then the other weapon that you have in there, you got the Aegis of Urskaya. Remove all brown gems. Deal 22 damage to an enemy boosted by gems remove. Kind of cool, but I don't like removals. And because it doesn't do anything as far as like mana generation, when you're talking about weapons, you either want your weapons to be high volume when it comes to damage, or you want them to actually be able to you actually want them to be able to generate some mana for you one way or another, and in either event you're not really getting a bunch of either one, so it's not really a great weapon when it comes to that particular portion. Everything else in there, really not necessarily. Dawnbringer, if you actually put all the pieces together to do Dawnbringer, that's great too. But I haven't really made a concerted effort to do a push for it as of yet. I will. I know you're gonna need the souls in order to make that happen, but at some point I will. But I haven't done it just yet. I know a lot of people do a breakdown of what's inside of here. I will from a mid-tiers perspective. Most of these characters I already have, so I really don't, for me, I don't look to like craft in this particular, the craft in these particular characters coming out of here, because I think you can use your resources a lot better. Shout out to Loot Wizard, who kind of pointed this out, and I'm going to go with the same thing. Tulio is the one that I would choose if you're going to choose anyone to actually chase after, because this one is one of the better mana generating characters that you have in the game, as far as like a 4 tier. That's the one I would probably go for, if anything. But you can get better breakdown. Loot Wizard gives probably a slightly better breakdown in regards to that, but it actually really works out pretty well in regards to that. So everything else, as far as like, you know, Tank Bot's actually kind of cool too. I kind of like the Tank Bot. Still 13 armor, deal 13 true damage, and a mech team. If you have Tina, that actually works out pretty well too. So you can actually do a few different things as well. But those are kind of the couple of ones that I would think of from a mid-tier perspective. But the crazy thing about it is, if you're actually on a pretty decent guild where you're actually getting keys, and Thrall. I mean, don't sleep on Thrall. Don't craft the summoning stones for it. But Thrall makes your team really, really quick. Clockwork Sphinx, as far as like in a mech team, actually works out pretty well. I like both of those. When you put those in when you put Clockwork Sphinx in a mech team, once you get a mythic that is a mech like a Tina or whatever, it actually works out pretty well, Clockwork Sphinx. But you don't have to go through the summoning stones to get it. Just pull them. That's really what it comes down to. You use your keys, and if you're using your keys and pulling pretty consistently, just pull. I mean, that's really what it comes down to when it comes to these. When it comes to all the other ones, you know, you can see like all these other legendaries and mythics. Same thing, you know, I'll make the same thing like everybody else says when it comes to like the legendaries. Legendaries, 9 times out of 10 you don't have to craft, because even though the legendaries are cool, Shadow Dragon straight, what else, Shiguro is straight. I'm gonna tell you right now that you could actually pull these probably a lot quicker than anything else. So when you're crafting, when you're thinking about crafting like crafting like characters and whatnot, really what you should be concerning yourself with is crafting mythics. Especially from a mid-tier perspective, you gotta figure out what mythics to craft and which ones make a lot of sense. Now, you know, this Enraged Karandra, great. What that means, you can't actually pull for it. You're actually going to have to, you know, go in and craft it, which is cool. Definitely a higher variation of the Karandra that you're able to pick up right now. But that means that you can either craft Zolgoth in the same manner that you could craft the Enraged Karandra. So it's going to take the, you know, the same setup in order to make it work in essence. Now it's just a matter of choice if you're going to actually put in the work to make that happen. Now, as far as like the other mythics is concerned, Mystralis, I run into a lot of teams that actually plays with Mystralis. It's kind of one of those plug and play characters. I didn't know if it was actually that good or not, but it's actually really good. Gets an extra turn 1 to 4 times with splash damage that it can hit an enemy. Actually enchants all allies on 4 or 5 matches, so it's actually going to be ramping up your mana generation. Really good character. King Bloodwood, 25 heavy splash damage boosted by entangled and bleeding enemies, still 10 life from all enemies. So basically a it does top end and bottom end damage, if that makes sense. So it does top end damage where it's going to be taking away armor. It does bottom end damage where it's going to be stealing life. So it's actually not bad. It's not great, but it's actually pretty decent. It inflicts entangle and bleed on random enemies when you're matching 4 gems or more. So when you're matching, you can entangle and bleed enemies pretty quickly here. So it's definitely not a bad one as well. I mean, is it great? I mean, I think Mystralis is probably a little more useful, but that's not buns by any stretch of the imagination, at least from what it looks like on paper. And then Obsidious, of course, doing 30 heavy splash damage to a random enemy, it destroys a 5 or 5 block, which actually gives you all those gems, 50% chance to deal light damage as well. So basically you could do like, 30 off top, you could get a chance to do another 30 light damage as well. You're getting mana, so it's definitely another very useful mythic as well. So if you're thinking about crafting from a mid-tier perspective, any one of the 3 would actually work. I probably would go with Mystralis, not for anything else, is that I think the mana generation and the extra turn for mid-tiers, I think that benefits you a slight bit more, and I think is a little bit more plug and play into most other teams, as opposed to like an Obsidious, which is probably maybe a slight bit more situational. And then with like Obsidious, where you can actually have Earthquake where it stuns on enemies on 4 or 5 matches, that's actually a very good ability, by the way. Also summons a Dust Storm when enemy dies, so you're actually getting some generation, and it's you can put it up top because that Stone Scan reduced skull damage by 50%. It's definitely not bad at all. Now, I don't know how well it carries. I haven't seen many Obsidious in action, but I have seen a lot of Mystralis in action, and a lot of teams feature Mystralis, and it's actually a very good character. So if you told me to choose one, I'm gonna probably tell you the one that you probably want to choose is Mystralis, and then you could probably maybe take a look at Obsidious and King Bloodwood, all of which is good as well. Yeah, that's the way that I would personally go in that regard. Everything else, probably not. Crane Aurora is another mythic that's in that mix as well. Gives all other allies barrier 16 life, not bad. Create 10 gems of a chosen color, which is actually pretty cool as well. Gain bonus mana from all gym matches, so basically it's going to ramp up herself pretty quickly. Plus it has the gains 1 magic when you cast a spell, so it's basically like a really quick mana generation. But if you just needed something that was more niche, that was mana generation, Queen Aurora is kind of cool in that regard if you pulled her. And if you didn't have any other mythics, it would kind of be kind of cool if you have some good legendaries to kind of match up. But I wouldn't go out of my way to craft her either. If you're going to craft, you have the 4,000 diamonds or whatnot to do it. Mystralis is probably, for me, will probably be the 1. Obsidious would be 2. King Bloodwood would be 3. And then I would probably say Queen Aurora would be 4. The other ones, it takes some doing in order to craft, and I may do a video about that somewhere down the line. But that's kind of where I am in regards to that. I can craft another 210 gems, which will put me at about 700. I might craft our weapon, but I'm really looking more forward to making sure that I have some gems so I could get some, so I could go ahead and get some more mythics in my mix. So I need to go ahead and add that Badge of Rage real fast and go ahead and plug that one in. What I was in the midst of doing is Oh no, I was going to show you. We'll go ahead and do this. Let me show you what my team kind of looks like when it comes to, like, this is what the life of a mid-tier really looks like. So let me kind of show you a little bit what my team is looking like right now as far as like mythics versus legendaries. So I have a few mythics in the mix. So I have the Wild Queen, I have Infernus, I have Amarek, I have Voice of Orpheus, and I have Tina 9000. You know, those are my base mythics that I have. I have other characters that are actually in mythic tier, obviously, but as far as like my base mythics, those are my base mythics that actually get run, and all of them, believe it or not, are pretty good. Amarok and Infernus, I kind of run them hand in hand with each other, works pretty well. Shout out to my team at Burning Legends. They gave me a team to work with Voice of Orpheus. Tina 9000, still trying to figure out how to work with Tina, and then Wild Queen, I have a pretty decent team with the Wild Queen as well. So those are the mythics that I have. I'm gonna tell you right now, Wild Queen and Infernus and maybe Amarok are probably what you would consider either top, you know, they're all considered top tier. Now whether you put them in like your S tier or your A tier is one of the two. Tina's considered a top tier as well. The only one that's considered like a mid tier when it comes to the mythics is Voice of Orpheus. And I'm gonna tell you right now, Infernus I crafted, Tina 9000 I crafted, Amarek I pulled. It was off of a key pull. Voice of Orpheus was my first mythic that I key pulled. I didn't even know what to do with Voice of Orpheus, but I pulled him off a key pull. And then Wild Queen I crafted Wild Queen as well. I think I crafted Wild Queen, if I'm not mistaken. Crafted Wild Queen, crafted Infernus, crafted Tina 9000. Those are the three that I crafted that I know for sure. Amarek and Voice of Orpheus is the only two I pulled. So it tells you how hard it is to actually pull. A lot of all my legendaries I actually pulled. So I have a good number of legendaries, and as you will see, I got like certain ones that are, you know, boosted up to mythics, but a lot of them I actually pulled as legendaries off rip, or, you know, I went to the underground in order to grab them, which is always another good thing. If you are a mid-tier or a bottom-tier player who hasn't been doing their undergrounds, you definitely want to go ahead and do your undergrounds and make sure that you get a chance to pick up a lot of these legendaries. I think the better legendaries are sitting here as opposed to sitting in key pools, believe it or not. So that's the way that I see it. What I'm gonna do, before I jump out of here, I gotta kill 150 brown gems, but I really do need to go ahead and do this and go ahead and do my round of, you know, people call it the workout. Shout out to Cindy Cool, he calls it the workout. I just call it my dailies real fast. I haven't had a chance to really do my dailies just yet. I was kind of waiting to get on cam to do them real fast. And really the teams I run my daily with, as you will see, I just run what you call the key team to do my dailies. Not for anything else, it's because I could do them pretty much as quickly as possible without taking a whole bunch of time. And maybe go through like all 9 scenarios real quick, run through my dailies, do my dungeons and whatnot. Go ahead and make sure I run it with the key team. Basically the key team is Cedric, Sparklesack, Skeleton Key, Egg Thief, and Greed. That's pretty standard. Everybody who's been playing Gems of War know about the key team. The reason why I run it is because it's relatively quick. Is it the quickest team? No. There's other quicker teams, of course. But as far as like what my setup is, this was the quickest team that I have. And believe it or not, when I was first starting off and playing this game, this was the team that actually afforded me to get the resources that I needed real quickly in order to put myself in position to be good enough for another top flight guild to take a look at me and say like, yo, we'll give you some run because you're actually doing good. This was really the team that actually, gave me the resources that I needed. So the way, if you're unfamiliar of how to get this team, I know you get the key through doing one of the you get the key from you get the key, I believe it's through the Archer event, if I'm not mistaken. One of them, not Archer, not Archer, I'm sorry. You get the key from, I just drew a blank. Wait. You get the key from, the thief, sorry. I just drew a blank for like 5 seconds. So you get the key through doing 150 battles through with the thief perk on, and then you'll be able to get the key. Greed you could pull, Egg Thief you could pull, and Cedric, you're going to have to go in and go grab him through his vault event. That's the way that you get him. And I am doing this really terribly right now. Let me go ahead and pick up the pace real fast and figure out what I'm going to do with this board. So that's how you necessarily pick it up. So that's for me. But if you're a lower tier or mid tier, this is the one that I typically would use. And then what I do if I just need to kind of just build resources, I use this team PvP, do the tier 2s. If you can do tier 3s with it, great. But I typically just do tier 2s with it, just so I could just quickly just win as many events as I can. Bang through so I could go ahead and get the resources that I need. Typically I need the gold 9 times out of 10, because with my guild we got to get like 1.2 mil just to kind of satisfy requirements, which is not a bad thing. If you're playing consistently enough, you could definitely do it. And I've been, definitely been pretty consistent in making sure that happens. But 1.2 mil is not an easy chunk to get, so you kind of have to do all these every single day for sure to give yourself a chance to get 1.2 mil without taking like major league losses in the process. So that's how I go about it. I just use the key team in order to make that happen. Anybody who's been playing this, who knows about resource generation, this will be one of the quickest ways to do it. But that's how it's been going down for me. But anywho, outside of that, what's been going on with y'all? Hopefully everything's been going good. I know that this is not your typical A game that you see from me in particular. I know y'all see me with the Marvel Puzzle Quest tip, but I've been kind of banging away at this. I kind of sat off from Marvel Puzzle Quest for a period of time. I will ultimately dive back into that probably more sooner than later, because I know people have been looking for some more content for that Marvel Puzzle Quest, so I might dive into that somewhere down the line. It's going to probably take a little bit of time though before I get into it, because I'm with my guild and stuff, and I got some other games that I'm cranking out right now. Marvel Puzzle Quest is just not on the radar at this point in time, but I know a lot of people looking for content for it, because I know content has been a little light, even though there's been a lot of changes, a lot of good things happening in Marvel Puzzle Quest. I have been paying attention, even though I have not been necessarily playing. I have been paying attention to what's going on. There's been a lot of good character changes and stuff, kind of like in this game here. It's been a lot of changes that kind of happen on the fly, especially with the campaign mode in this particular game. This kind of changed the perspective a little bit. Did it really change the game dramatically? No. All it does is gave you more things to do to kind of focus on in order to make sure that you kind of clear through and get your events kind of rolling. So for me, one of those things where it's one of those days where I don't know if the campaign changes lives. It's still decision time. Like for me, I know for everybody it's different. Like if you don't have a mythic at all, and the $10 doesn't really like affect you as far as like the $10. I mean, the $10 don't even affect me either. I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. It doesn't affect me at all as far as like the $10, but what it does is that when you're playing a game that is free to play, it is very hard to sit up there and actually put up a buttload of money for a free to play game. I understand you want to be in support of the people who create the game, especially if the game is good. I'm not mad at that if that is your position and perspective. But for me, if it's a free to play game, I play it exactly the way this is intended. Free to play. I'm not going to sit there and drop buttloads of money into the game if I don't necessarily have to. And this is why I said for a lot of people it's decision time. And we're going to talk about that probably later on in the week, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. We'll go ahead and talk about that a little bit more thorough. when it's more of a time for, like, for me in particular to decide if I'm gonna actually do it or not. Because for me, I just don't know if that particular mythic is worth $10 per se. It's really what it comes down to. Do you think that mythic is worth $10? The resources is cool. I know it's in the same vein that what they do with like Fortnite and some of these other games. This is how they make their money. This is how Warzone and all them, this is how they get down. A lot of games go with that particular format. I just didn't think I would see it in this particular game. I don't know if it's a necessary function. I don't know how many people's actually dropped the $10. I would be curious to see who dropped the $10 for the to get the campaign, to get the mythic and all that stuff. I will be curious to see that. I don't think the top tier players would do that, to be honest with you. And I always kind of say that, would the top tiers do it? And would some of the other streamers and YouTubers who play Gems of War do that? Would they drop the money in order to have their, to get that particular mythic? And I think the consensus, and I'm not 100% sure, I think the consensus is no right now, because I think that even though it's considered to be maybe a top flight mythic, I don't know if it's the buy all and end all when it comes to mythics, to be honest with you. So I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure if I would do it. I mean, I'm a mid-tier. It's different for me because, getting a extra mythic in my mix actually works out pretty decently as far as, like, building better rosters and stuff, and maybe competing a slight bit better when it comes to, like, my PvP. But I got a pretty fire PvP team, and we'll go over that sometime later on this week as well. I'll show you my PvP team that I'm working with, and I'll give you some breakdowns in that regard, from a mid-tier's perspective. I'm not going to give you the top tier. That's where I'm a little bit different. I'm not going to give you top tier, like, oh, well, I'm a top tier dude and you should do this, because, man, I'll save that for some of the more of the experts. I'll save that for Rel. I'll save that for Loot Wizard, even Cindy Cool. I'll save that for them boys there. Shout out to all of them, because they all do good work, and I've learned from Rel and from Loot Wizard. I learned awful lot from just watching them. So definitely support them as well. But for me, as a mid-tier, I'm going to give you just the mid-tier's perspective. What is the mid-tier's perspective in this game? Because that's really what it's going to be. And for as long as I play this game, until I get to the point where I have enough characters to consider myself top tier, and that means I would have to get enough mythics and actually to be in a point where I could compete. Currently, I am your perennial mid-tier player. And I will probably be that for a good long period of time. That doesn't mean that I don't compete. That doesn't mean that I'm not good in the guild wars. That doesn't mean that I get, bopped up every single time I'm running into a PvP. I have good solid teams. As you well see, I got the right mythics to make my team work. But I know a lot of people don't. And so a lot of people need to hear from other people's in their actual bracket of ranking in this game. Like, how do I break through? Which characters do I need to break through? The reason why I chose my characters, as far as like the ones to craft, was the ones that would help me break through. I knew Wild Queen was one of the best mythics, and everybody who said it on their thread said the same thing. Wild Queen is one of the best. That's why it was the first one that I crafted, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the one I crafted. I don't know if I pulled it or crafted it. I believe that I crafted that one because I knew that it was fire. But 9 times out of 10, I want to say I crafted that one first, knowing that it was fire, knowing that it was recommended, and knowing that it was a very good character in order to get down on. That's the reason why I particularly went with it. Because I knew that I could probably do some things. I also did wind up crafting a weapon too. So, and like I said, it actually works with Wild Queen, believe it or not. So, for me, that's how I particularly got down. I'm gonna give you my perspective of this game from a mid-tier's point of view. I mean, because a lot of times when you're playing games, you always hear from, well, here's what the experts say, but I ain't nowhere near there. What do I do if I'm nowhere near the position he's in? Well, I don't have necessarily the stats. I mean, yes, you're going to have many people tell you how to get to the stats, but I'm going to show you how to maneuver in the stats from the position that you're in to actually get up to that point. I will actually do that portion for you. Show you how I am going to get to that position, how I am going to grind, how I am going to push you. That's what you're going to see in videos going forward. Now, whether I do this on the daily, whether I do this weekly, definitely whether I do this more live, y'all rock with your boy. But I'm actually gonna get some other games in here too. But at this point in time, I gotta get ready to go to work. I just wanted to get on real fast, let y'all know what was going on as far as like the week events is concerned. Definitely want to rock this for my YouTube people, because I know a lot of people on my YouTube page is gonna ask for some content. So I've been laying low a little bit. So if you're watching me on Twitch, I definitely appreciate y'all rocking with your boy. Watching on Twitch, it's definitely a privilege and an honor to do as such, as y'all well know. I will be getting some other content as well, so definitely be on the lookout for that, of course. But let me go ahead and get up out of here, man. Y'all know who I am, Mr. True Indeed, of course. Y'all know who I represent. It's Holy Circle Gaming. Shout out to Vernon Legends too. Like always, it's God above everything. Till the next time, family, we'll do it again soon. Salute.